Hello, everyone. As you're coming in, welcome to Job Club. We are very excited to have you here this morning for a wonderful presentation on resumes. Let us know as you're coming in where you're located and what careers, the type of work that you're interested in. Put that in the chat box. And as a reminder, locate that chat box and toggle the to icon to everyone so that we can see your chat as they come in. So good morning. As everyone's coming in, we'll get started very, very shortly. Again, as people are coming in this morning, want to welcome you to Job Club. Let us know where you're logging in from and what type of work that you're interested in. We want to be able to support you in the ways that we know how. So let us know the industries that you're interested in and make sure that you locate the chat box and toggle your to icon to everyone. Ask questions throughout the presentation today. We'll be having a chat moderator available to field those questions to our presenter. We'd love to hear your questions and love to be able to get those questions answered for you. So we'll get started very shortly. See a lot of people coming in. Thank you for sharing what you're interested in and the types of roles that excite you. And it's always great to see the diverse group of people that are in our job club. All right, as people are coming in, again, let us know where you're logging in from and the types of industries that you're interested in, and locate your chat box and toggle that to icon to everyone. We'll go ahead and get started now. We are Alumni Career Services. We're happy to provide Job Club every second and fourth Tuesday of the semester month. If you want more individualized career coaching, we are available to help you with that. Anyone can join the UK Alumni Association and be a part of that membership benefit is having individualized coaching, 2 1-hour sessions with either myself or Caroline Francis. And so we work with people in a wide variety of areas here. So resume, cover letter, LinkedIn strategies, overall job search strategies, career transitions. If you are interested in making a career pivot, we are able to help you with that as well. Retirement career planning. So a lot of different services that the Alumni Career Services have. So if you're interested in that, anyone, you don't have to have gone to UK to become a member of the UK Alumni Association. And part of that member benefit is having 2 1-hour coaching sessions with the team here. Our agenda today, we do want to welcome you to Job Club. We have a very exciting presentation today. If you do have a success story to share, we'd love to hear that success. Type that in the chat box and so we can celebrate that with you. Then we'll have our main speaker presentation and remind you of the UK STEPS partner that we have that participates in Job Club and give you a little sneak peek of what's coming up in a couple of weeks for our next time at Job Club. Our mission here is to provide a positive environment for job seekers to network and learn best practices for the job search. Again, we meet on the second and fourth Tuesday of each month, and you can find the schedule of topics here on this link, ukalumni.net/job club. We do have a wide variety of topics and speakers all across, we've secured speakers all across the nation here. We're happy to bring their expertise so that you can learn from them, but check that schedule out so you can benefit from what they have to share. This is our Job Club facilitator team. My name is Amy Gamblin. I'm the Associate Director of Alumni Career Services. We also have Caroline Francis, who co-founded Job Club. She's the Director of Alumni Career Services, joined by Nicole Waite, who is our Employment Specialist at UK STEPS, Temporary Employment, and Mason Mayborg, who's the UK Alumni Association, who helps us behind the scenes here. So we're so grateful for everyone that participates and the facilitators here that we're able to put all of this together for you. If you are a new first timer, please put that in the chat box. We want to welcome you if you are a first timer, or maybe you haven't been here in a while. And I've seen some, faces that maybe haven't been here, or not see faces, but names that maybe not have been here for a while, and some first timers as well. So if you are a first timer, you haven't been here for a while, let us know in the chat. We want to celebrate that with you for showing up today for this presentation. So I'm seeing some first timers here. That's terrific. I know we have a great group of people here, so lots of first timers. So welcome to Job Club. Now, just as a reminder, some people may be conducting a confidential job search, so we want to be respectful of their job search privacy. So if you recognize a name, maybe just being respectful of, they want to protect their own privacy. So we want everyone to have a safe and comfortable place to come here at Job Club. So we want to be respectful of that. Now, Job Club is hosted in an online format. We are live here in Zoom webinar. So those of you that come join us live have the benefit of asking questions in the chat box, where a chat moderator is available to answer or to present that question to the presenter. Recordings and PowerPoint slides are available. So all of our Job Club recordings are available on our YouTube channel, and that link is ukalumni.net/Job Club recordings. Highly recommend you check that out because we've had some fabulous speakers over the past couple of years. So if there's an area that you're interested in learning more about, such as resumes today, interviewing strategies, overall job search strategies, we have different types of presentations. Check our YouTube channel out. Maybe there's one that you can learn from. So that's an available resource for you. Now, we also have a lot of free resources on our website, UK Alumni Career Services website. We have different career webinars posted there that we've done throughout the years, different training topics that are available there. So check that link out. There's also a QR code there that you can scan. We do have a very active LinkedIn group called Job Club of Kentucky Sharing Community. And so when I say active, we do have a lot of people, a lot of employers, send us their job opportunities, and we're posting those on our Job Club of Kentucky Sharing Community. So make sure that you check that out. We do share tips and strategies as well there. So if you aren't a member or you haven't joined that LinkedIn group, make sure you join that so you can take advantage of all of the job opportunities that we do post there. We do have a lot of events throughout the semesters. So we had a very heavy January and February month, 2 months at the beginning of the year. We do have a couple of upcoming events to take note of. And if you are local, our Job Club Lunch Bunch is always a great place to meet people in person. The next one's March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, at Pacini's in Chevy Chase. So it's a great opportunity to, again, network with people. And we also have an employer that we usually spotlight. They come and they share their own thoughts and their strategies and tips with the group there. So again, it's a great community of people, safe place, to come together. And we provide the pizza. So we can't beat that. So free lunch. So that's coming up March 17th. We also do Ask a Career Coach once a month in the semesters. The next one is April 7th, and that's from noon to 1 p.m. as well. So Ask a Career Coach, you can come on. It's a Zoom meeting. You can come off camera. And again, great place to connect with people, learn from each other, ask whatever career question that you have. Caroline and I are there, and we're able to field those questions for you. So make sure that you check out our events that are upcoming for the rest of the semester, and then we're also going to be putting together an amazing fall semester for you. Now, who here, if you have a win or success, let us know that in the chat. We'd love to celebrate that with you again. Maybe you've set up a recent interview. Maybe you've updated your resume. Maybe you, had a coffee chat with someone or networking event. Let us know if you've had any career successes. Just going through the chat real quick here. Again, employers and recruiters are always welcome at Job Club, and we love to engage with our employers. You can submit a job lead on our, again, Job Club sharing community on LinkedIn, or we do also have a form that you can submit, and we'll post that opportunity on our LinkedIn page. We love to engage our employers and recruiters, and we thank you so much for engaging with us and being a part of this awesome team. Now we want to welcome our wonderful speaker today, Kina Weber. Kina is a dynamic human resources leader and talent development professional based here in Lexington, Kentucky, known for her expertise in recruiting, career coaching, and guiding employees in crafting standout resumes. As the Associate Vice President of Human Resources and Learning and Development at the University of Kentucky Federal Credit Union, Kina has reviewed thousands of resumes throughout her career and has developed a keen understanding of what separates an effective resume from an ordinary one. With a passion for helping individuals tell their professional story with clarity and confidence, Kina equips job seekers and emerging professionals with practical strategies to highlight their strengths, communicate their accomplishments, and position themselves competitively in the job market. Her approach blends real-world HR insight with an encouraging, learner-focused style that empowers participants to take meaningful steps toward their career goals. We're so excited to have you here, Kina. Everyone get out a pen and paper and take some great notes. This will be a terrific presentation. Thank you so much, Kina.
Thank you, Amy. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm so excited to go over the presentation today. So it is called Crafting a Resume That Stands Out from a Practical HR Insider Perspective. So let's go to the next slide. The agenda for today, I'll just do a really brief overview. You will be receiving copies of these slides. So we're going to do the welcome and session overview, which is basically talking about how to craft a resume that stands out, really tailoring it to the job that you're applying for, giving you a 15-year HR veteran lens, what a resume is and is not, which some of you may or may not be surprised with some of these tips, but thinking of your resume as a brand, which is really important, a resume structure that works, bullet points that get noticed, tailoring your resume without burnout. So if you have been in the job market for a while, or maybe you're just getting started, we don't want to spend a lot of time recreating everything, but how can we make what we have a little bit better? Bringing it all together, I'll have some time for the Q&A at the end, and as well as bonus handouts that will be sent to you for your email. So let's get started. I have been in HR for quite a while. I started in retail stores and moved my way into manufacturing and now in the financial institution. So definitely a broad range of industries. So I definitely have seen quite a bit of resumes, but the most important thing that hasn't changed within those industries are hiring teams move fast. So resumes are scanned. You get pretty much seconds, not minutes, to be reviewed. Most people applying can do the job, but the challenge is helping the reader quickly understand why you. So clarity, not experience level, is what separates resumes that move forward and those that don't. So 15-year HR lens, like I've said, reviewed thousands of resumes, several industries and experience levels, hiring manager and recruiter perspective. I've looked at resumes for entry level candidates, mid career professionals, senior leaders, career changes, internal applicants, external applicants. And here's what I can tell you. No matter what the industry, no matter the experience level, the patterns are incredibly consistent. Strong resumes share similar qualities. Weak resumes also share similar qualities, similar mistakes. I'm sorry, looks like my sound. Can everybody hear me all right?
It's a little muffled, but I think if you maybe speak a little
Okay,
higher, like louder,
how about now?
it's a little, yes, that's better. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you for calling that out. So over time, you begin to see what immediately captures attention from a resume, what causes hesitation from the recruiter standpoint, and what creates confusion. What makes someone stand out is also what we're going to focus today for today's workshop. So this session isn't about resume trends or design hacks. It's about patterns I've seen over and over again, so you don't have to learn them through rejection or guesswork. My goal today is to shorten your learning curve. All right, so let's talk about the reality of hiring volume for a moment. An average time that recruiters spend on an initial resume scan, so this is when you apply and the recruiter is interested in your application, so they'll pull up your resume, is only 6 to 8 seconds. That doesn't mean they're careless, it means that they're reviewing a large number of applications on a daily basis. For many corporate roles, the typical number of resumes received for one single listing is actually 250 applicants, depending on how popular that role is. Out of that entire pool, only 46 candidates on average are invited to actually interview. And then, of course, after those 46 candidates, there's only one person that ultimately gets hired. So these numbers can feel intimidating at first, but they actually reinforce something important. The goal of your resume is not to tell your entire professional story, right? That's why you may have heard we want to keep your resume one page for maybe an entry level um, associate coming in, or maybe if you are a seasoned career professional, try to keep it to at least 2 pages. So the goal is to earn a deeper look. When a recruiter sees your resume, they scan it in the first 6 to 8 seconds. They're going to probably put that aside and say, I want to go back to that and take a deeper look so that we can see if we're interested in a phone screen or even calling them in for an interview. If your resume can quickly communicate relevance and value, you dramatically increase the chance of moving from that larger pool into the smaller group invited to interview. So, what does the data tell us? Multiple recruiting studies show that recruiters spend roughly 6 to 8 seconds on an initial scan. Um, but another important reality, oh, sorry, I went a little bit too far. Another important reality is something called ATS. So if you haven't heard of ATS, it means applicant tracking systems. So basically, a large percentage of resumes are filtered before a human even sees them. And you may come across these at a lot of larger companies, especially a lot of tech-based companies. So the reason this is important is alignment and keyword clarity really matters here. Here's something I've personally observed over and over. Most hiring managers form an early impression within the top third of the resume. So you have the very beginning of your resume. This is where you're really going to get the attention. And I have a resume format that I'll also share with you that really helps bring that attention to the recruiters. If your value proposition isn't clear early, it becomes much harder to recover later in the document. This is why we don't want to see 3, 4 page resumes or even one resume that has, 1 page, but it has, a long paragraph, for example, and not necessarily really good keywords in each bullet point. So callbacks are driven by more clarity and alignment rather than by fancy formatting or length. So it's not about being the most impressive candidate on paper, it's about being the clearest. So let's take a look let's go deeper into ATS. ATS is not a robot deciding your future. I know there's a lot of discussion with AI right now, but it's just simply a tool, right? So it's a tool to help sort resumes for alignment between your resume and the job description. It's not grading grammar, it's not judging personality, it's looking for relevance. So we're going to move on to the next slide here. So we're going to go on to talk about what a resume is and what it is not. Again, I have seen countless resumes, and we definitely don't want it to be a full job history. We don't want it to be a compliance document or an entire job description. Believe it or not, I have seen resumes that people just literally copied and pasted the entire job description. And when you're reading it, you're like, these words sound familiar. And that's because it's from the job description itself. So we definitely don't want that. Resumes do not equal the job description. They define expectations, they show performance and metrics, and they are not interchangeable, right? So whenever we see something, for example, that has a job description, we say, this is kind of it's too generic, right? Did you really put in the time to tailor your resume for this job? That way we can see what skills that you have that are applicable towards this job. So we want that to make sure that stands out. It looks like there was a question here. So what about formatting? Yes, we'll get to the formatting in a couple slides. So thank you for mentioning that. So we really want to reinforce the importance of differentiation. Again, you only have 68 seconds to capture that recruiter's eye. And what is that recruiter going to basically say out of your resume applies to this job that I'm looking for? What skills do they have that apply to this job that I'm looking for? So if you had 6 seconds to review, so I want everybody to take a minute and just look at this slide here. If you had 6 seconds to review from example 1 and example 2, what do you feel like would be a better resume to submit? Would it be example number 1 or would it be example number 2? So basically, hopefully everybody's going to choose number 2. Yeah, great. Thank you. So we want number 2. And why is that? So when you look at number 1, you see that there's large blocks of text, right? So again, 6 seconds. You have a vague summary. You have task descriptions and a very cluttered layout. Example number 2, it's very clear. You have professional summary, great, work experience, their job title, and then again, we talk about those bullets that I mentioned earlier, very specific bullet points of what were the tasks that you had in that job, but what impact you made at that job. It's organized, it's clean. We don't have a lot of, extra designs and things of that nature. So again, the difference is we want qualified and compelling. So we want to think about our resume as a brand, right? So, how do we want to tailor our resume that it shows the snapshot of our value? We want to emphasize storytelling, but with consistency, with intention. So this applies at all career stages. A quick example would be you are, for example, an intern, right, at a company, and you may not have any direct reports, you may not have, any strategic goals that are given to you, but maybe you had a project, and that project that you were given actually ended up getting adopted by that company as a best practice, for example, right? So even as an intern at a company where, again, you don't really have direct reports, you don't really have goals that you have to meet on a quarterly basis, but you have this project that you made and it ended up being adopted by that company and ended up saving that company time or, improving their metrics at some point. That's, even just as an entry level, a really great way to show your value. So what employees actually want to see is what you owned, what you improved, and what changed because of you. Even something as simple as I improved time to fill, for example, from an HR expensive, I improved time to fill by offering training to hiring managers, right? So time to fill is the recruitment of how quickly, when you post an application, does it get filled by the hiring manager and the candidate accepts the role. So I improved time to fill by 20% because I created this training to help hiring managers quickly phone screen, quickly complete a resume review, and bring the candidate in for an interview based off of these 5 qualities that I'm looking for, right? So you really want to take whatever, again, whatever you're applying for and tailor it to that job description. So how does branding show up? It shows up by your headline, which we'll talk about here in a few, your language choices, consistent themes, and again, aligning your resume to your strengths, not just tasks. So going back to that time to fill example, yes, the task was I needed to improve time to fill. Okay, how did I do that? I took the time to maybe meet with hiring managers and I said, what is your biggest something that you may maybe struggle with on a consistent basis? Well, I really don't have a great way to screen applicants, but I'm looking at all these resumes. Okay, let's talk about creating a phone screening tool. Let's talk about the questions you want to make sure you're asking because or tailored to whatever the job description actually is. That way, if you're interested, you can bring them on for an on-site interview, right? So that is something that was the strength that you basically took because you took the time to meet with the manager and discuss kind of what they need help with, right? So let's go over. I know there's been a lot of questions about formatting. So here's just a quick resume example. And again, you'll receive this in your email, but this is a resume structure that works, right? So the very important here, and again, I've looked at this is actually what my personal resume as well looks like. So I'm very confident to kind of share this with you all. But you want a strong header and headline. So a header and headline is what are you marketing yourself as, right? What are you marketing yourself as? Excuse me. So, for example, if a position is calling for an executive assistant, so you will put something like, experienced executive assistant, 15-year experience executive assistant, something like that. Your summary or profile. So this is going to be just very brief. It's going to highlight your experience, your skills, the value that you bring for employers, and again, focusing on the type of role that you're seeking and the strengths that make you differentiate yourself from others. And again, will help the hiring manager really want to look at your resume even further. We want to keep this short, right? So again, when we go back to example number 1, they had a professional summary, however, it was very long. So we want to keep this brief, at least at most 2 to 3 sentences and a brief summary. The next step is your experience. So what I like to do is tailor my resume to my most recent experience. So let's look at entry level versus someone who maybe has had a long career. You don't want to if you're an entry level, you're probably only going to have maybe 1 job, maybe 2 jobs, maybe an internship, maybe just schoolwork, right? If you are an experienced professional, you maybe will have maybe, 10 jobs, for example. So just like with an entry level, of course, you'll put your coursework, you'll put your entry level job or your internship if that's applicable. But if you're a seasoned professional, you don't necessarily have to put every single job that you've had since you graduated high school, for example, all the way up to the most recent, right? We want to find that balance. But a good rule of thumb is just to use the previous 3 jobs that maybe you've had. Or if you have had 1 job, for example, but you've progressed, so you could also put those there. So let's say for my previous career, I actually was with the company for 8 years, but I moved jobs several times, right? So even though it looked like I had 1 job, I still broke it out into here's the parent company, and then each job that I had as I was promoted throughout the company. So there's definitely ways you can format that. You'll get this in the format that the handout that you're getting, but you also want to include skills. So your applicable skills are always going to come from the job description. Believe it or not, the job description has everything that you want to look for when you're applying for a role. So we talk about skills, a job description could have, for example, project management, right? So one of your skills and how you're going to be tailoring your job is project management keywords and project management type of project management tasks that you've done. The education is going to be simple education, where you graduated. Um, if again for an entry level, you're going to maybe put applicable coursework as maybe you don't have a lot of experience yet. Again, you want to make sure it's clean, clear, and recruiter friendly, and then using ATS words that are applicable. And we're going to talk about that on the next slide. Let's see. So again, tips for using keywords effectively. So we talked about ATS, right? So that's applicant tracking system. This is the robot essentially that is scanning. Not every company, by the way, uses these, and you don't necessarily probably know which company does or does not, but it's a good rule of thumb to go ahead and include these words. So you want to mirror the language in job posting. As I said earlier, the job description has everything that the recruiter is looking for. So when a recruiter is looking at your resume, they're looking at that job description and they're going to say, what are the minimum requirements that I want this candidate to have that is from the job description? And does this candidate have it on their resume? So you're going to use exact terms from the job description instead of synonyms wherever your experience truly matches them. Again, they're not looking for perfection. They're just looking for relevance. So ask yourself a question when you're looking at the job description. What skills are repeated? What qualifications are listed more than once? What systems, tools, or certifications are mentioned? I didn't mention this in the last slide, but it is on the resume handout that you'll receive. It actually does have a section in there for certifications. If you have, for example, I have several HR certifications. Looking for HR positions, that is one thing that is most likely required, if not preferred, when they're looking at a candidate for a role. So for example, again, if a job posting mentions project management, customer service, data analysis. I saw in the chat earlier, someone was looking to go back into librarianship, right? So perfect. That is a very specific role. Put in your skills, right? For example, on your job, just on your resume, this is what I do as a librarian. And these are the skills that are needed to be a librarian and what is on the job description as well. So again, the same, don't use the exact phrase it, don't use exact synonyms, use the phrases that actually match the job description, right? So instead of simply listing customer service, for example, you might write resolved customer service issues and improved member satisfaction by providing timely account support. So whenever you are placing those keywords in your resume or in your professional summary, if you're a customer service professional, you will make sure you have some language like that. This helps both the system and the human reader understand how you use that skill. Again, I don't want anyone to think you're trying to game the system because that's not what you're doing. You're simply translating your experience into the language that the employer is using. Again, the employer is looking for language that is in the job description because that is what they are hiring for. When your resume speaks the same language as the job posting, it becomes much easier for both the system and the recruiter to recognize your fit for the role. So at the very end of this, I also have a handout for ATS keywords and verbs that you can also use for your resume. So how does the process work and some strategy? So here's a simple, practical keyword strategy that you can apply immediately. And it's very easy. So step one is you want to analyze the job description. Again, identify repeated skills, tools, phrases. You're then going to align your experience using matching language if it's accurate. So again, customer service. How did I work in a customer service role? Integrate it naturally. Embed the keywords into strong impact-focused bullet points. So we want to start with strong action verbs. We want to quantify when possible, right? So I like my earlier example of speaking about increasing time to fill metrics by 20%. I increased in time to fill I improved time to fill metrics by 20% by doing this, right? So we always want to have a what was our result, what was the outcome, and how did we get there? We want to show contribution, not compliance. Again, we don't want to say, I showed up to work every single day on time. That is great. We love that for a good employee, but it's not something that speaks to anything on the actual job description or the job, right? So this is very good for those who are entry level, are changing careers, and even have long tenure. Another example is instead of saying I have project management experience, I can say I managed cross-functional project timelines, delivering milestones on schedule. I completed X amount of projects in, you know, let's say I completed 10 projects by each quarter, which was actually ahead of goal by 10%. So you kind of can see how you're framing, you're using the action verb, you're using the outcome, and you're framing it to what the job description is asking you to do. All right, so here is my favorite slide, actually. It is the common resume formatting mistake. So I know there was some questions in the chat about formatting. So this looks on paper great. I'm sure this person really spent a lot of time working on the resume, putting a lot of great color and everything on here. But again, 6 seconds, right? So going back to that slide where we had example 1 and example 2, do you feel like you maybe have 6 seconds to look at this resume and really feel like you're getting what this person is trying to share with you as their personal brand? So we want to stay away from bad resume fonts such as Papyrus, Comic Sans, and Impact. We want to use good fonts such as Times New Roman, Georgia, or Cambria. We want to avoid too many graphics and pictures. So a good rule of thumb is you usually don't want to add your picture on your resume. You can add your LinkedIn. So it is completely best practice. Actually, if you have a LinkedIn profile, if you don't, I really suggest that you create one. It is perfectly acceptable to add a LinkedIn profile because that just shows, again, your skills. It shows if you had any recommendations from any peers in your job history, just in a quick link for the recruiter to view. But from your actual resume, we just want to keep our pictures off of that. We want to have no formatting issues, right? So when you have inconsistent spacing, misaligned icons, links that don't work, we want to stay away from that and just kind of work towards, again, making it very clean, easy to read for the recruiter, and again, ATS friendly as well. All right, now we're going to get into some examples. So bullet point problem. The problem is whenever you have several bullet points, you can have too many and then you can have too little as well. So the problem is if your bullet points are task focused. So for example, the responsible for customer service and answering questions from clients. Why is this weak? It's because it describes the job, not the person's contribution. Almost anyone in the role can say the same thing, right? So it's also, we also have to look for passive language. So assisted with scheduling meetings and maintaining office calendars. Why is this weak, right? So I think I mentioned earlier, executive assistant. This is probably something that an executive assistant would do, but how does this separate you from another executive assistant who is also applying for that same role? We want to say, instead of assisted with, how did we show initiative or responsibility? How did you make the meetings, scheduling, and the calendars for the office improve efficiency for everybody that was using them instead of just assisting? So another example is no outcomes. So manage social media accounts and posted company updates. Okay, that's great, but how do we know if that had any impact? How do we show that there's any indication of results or improvement? So when resumes rely on bullets like this, hiring managers see a long list of duties, but they still don't know what the person was good at, how they added value, whether they made a difference in the role. And that's why resumes start to blend together. Again, the goal is not to describe the job. It's not to copy and paste the job description. It's to show how you performed in the job. So how do we make this better? going back to the first, a couple slides up. So how do we make this better? We want to show movement and results. We want to have action, impact, outcome. And hopefully by at this point in the presentation, you're seeing a lot of themes, right? So it kind of goes back to the same things again, like not pasting the job description, not copying and pasting, and really just focusing on action, impact, outcome, having those deliverables, having those specific metrics, and then how you made a difference. So a strong bullet point, again, tells a quick story. What did you do? What changed because of it? And why did it matter? We want to make sure when you're looking at your job description, your resume, these questions are answered. So going back to the customer service example that we shared before. So responsible for customer service and answering questions from clients. That's the first bullet, right? How do we make that better? Delivered customer support for 50 plus members daily, resolving account issues and improving service satisfaction. Does everybody think that's a little bit better bullet point than responsible for customer service and answering questions from clients? So why does this work? It shows activity, it shows scale, and it shows impact. And again, same bullet point goal, but really making yourself differentiated from the next person. The next example was assisted with scheduling meetings and maintaining office calendars. So instead of saying something like that, which is probably on the job description, how did we have an impact? We coordinated executive calendars and scheduled cross-department meetings to support daily operations. So coordinated shows ownership and explains the purpose of your work. Example number 3, this was the social media example. So managed social media accounts and posted company updates. Better, manage company social media accounts, increasing audience engagement through consistent and campaign coordination. An even better example for this is manage company social media accounts, increasing audience engagement from, let's say, 20% daily engagement to 60% daily engagement, right? So if you have those metrics, and a lot of these are pretty accessible to find, especially if you have a metric-driven role. So my biggest suggestion is whenever you're in your role, if you can't remember the exact numbers, if you have a pretty good idea of how do you think it did, it's really good to just kind of a pro tip here, while you're in your role, start to keep a little file or a little tracking of different impacts and outcomes that you have done, especially if they are tied to metrics specifically. That way it can just help you add that to your resume. So again, this works because it shows action and shows improvement. But it's also good to keep those tips for your, keep those metric information, of course, for your performance reviews. So that's just a little HR extra tip there for you. So again, tailoring without burnout. So tailoring does not mean rewriting your resume for every single job. That would be pretty difficult to do, but we want to align in language and emphasis to the role that you are applying for. So typically, unless you're changing careers completely, so unless you're going from HR, for example, to, being a physician at a hospital, my resume is probably going to need to be completely tailored, right? But if I'm in HR, I'm probably going to be looking for other HR positions. So it's going to be pretty similar, but I may change or tweak some keywords depending on what level of position I'm applying for compared to a complete career change. So if I'm applying for, a lateral HR position, maybe my resume will pretty much stay the same, right? But if I'm applying for like a C-suite position in HR, maybe I'm going to want to use some examples that have a lot more strategic examples of how that resume is tailored to that C-suite level. So tailoring without burnout, we want to make sure that the resume helps both the ATS and human readers. And we want to explain how one affects the reader's experience by showing what we want to see. So we want one strong base resume, small targeted changes, and intentional keywords. Again, we don't want it to be too long, too cluttered, too generic, or too passive. So bringing it all together, We want to, again, have clarity over complexity. We want relevance over volume. So when we say relevance over volume, that means we want the job description to, again, be tailored, the resume to be tailored to the job description and not necessarily a whole history of every single job that you've ever had. We want confidence over perfection. So what did you do that you can speak to? Because eventually the resume just gets you to the job interview, right? So once you get to the interview, we want to be able to speak to those items that we mentioned on our resume because that's what your interview will be targeted towards. We want to review our resume after this session with fresh eyes. Use the template that you're going to receive. Use the ATS keywords handout that will help you with some strong action verbs. And then again, focusing your alignment on the job description that you're applying for. So I believe that is the end of the presentation. I know there's some questions here.
Yeah, great job, Kina. I hope everyone took great notes here as she was giving us some good tips and strategies for our resume. We do have a couple of questions. I've answered some of them, but
Thank
would
you.
love to get your viewpoint as well. Let's say someone had a career break,
Mhm.
and how do you, whether it's, for taking care of elderly parents or children, or how do you recommend putting that on a resume?
Yeah, that's a great question. And and I have seen that before as well. Um, you can basically put so again, the career break is perfectly normal nowadays. So I first want to start out by saying that it's not it's not something that hasn't been seen before. But I would just simply put career break on there and then put the dates on there of how long. You don't really have to put I should back this up. You shouldn't put the reason why you took a career break. So you don't want to say I was pregnant, for example, and or I took care of elderly parents, right? It is perfectly okay to just leave it as
Okay.
saying break for X amount of time. And the reason being is because we don't want to open it up for any, possible issues in the future. If you do get to the interview point, that is perfectly fine to kind of explain why you decided to take a career break, but we don't want to put that on our actual resume. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that's great because I have different, have heard different viewpoints on that. So I really appreciate you clearing that one up for us. The other great question that I saw, people sometimes are worried about ageism
Mm.
on their resume. So if you have, people say in their 50s or 60s and they still want to work, what do you recommend? How far do dates need to go back on a resume? What's the typical recommendation there?
Right. Um, and again, coming from an HR standpoint, of course, I'm going to say that, employers should look at your resume and look at any ageism, shouldn't have any ageism issues. However, if you are concerned about that, I would say again, like I said earlier, just tailor your resume to the last few jobs you've had. If there was several over the last, for example, 3 to 5 years, then maybe just tailor it to the last few that are relevant to the job, right? Again, you don't want to put every single job that you've had for the last 10, 15 years, right? I myself have had, almost 15 years of experience now. I'm not going to put every single job that I've ever had since I graduated. I am, however, going to keep it at that 2 page limit because I am a career. I do have a career in HR, so it's not necessarily an entry level position where maybe I have 1 page. So I'm going to keep it to 2 pages. So what specific jobs or if it was one job that I've been at for a long time, did I move up? Did I show progression? Or do I have again what the job description is requiring and what skills can I show that apply to that job description? So I have seen some resumes where again it's 4 to 5 years because someone put every single job that they've ever had, maybe over a span of 20 years, which is very good that they've had a lot of experience, but does it really show me what their current experience or what their current skills are needed for the job that they're applying for, if that helps a
Yeah.
little bit.
The typical recommendation I've heard, as part of the Professional Writers Association is 10 to 15 years.
Mm, okay.
But ensuring that it's relevant, like as you mentioned, that
Mhm.
the skills are relevant to the job that you are applying for. This is a great question that just came in, and it was one I was going to queue up to you next. Is there a good way to call back to skills work done in a job from a long time ago, and maybe that they are wanting to reapply for that type of job, so they haven't done that work in a while, and they want to get back in that type of work? Uh,
Yes, great question. So in the resume for template you'll receive, there's a skills section on there that you can add. So you can definitely add in there your skills, but if it is something that you're really proud of that you did in that role, and again, you have metrics and deliverables and outcomes that you can really tie to the job that you're applying for, feel free to go ahead and add that job on the resume. That's perfectly fine. Again, you just want to be able to catch the recruiter's eye, and if they see, even though you haven't done this job in a long time, but you've been at this current job that you're in for a while now, the recruiter's going to say, okay, well, they do have these skills and they do have this experience that maybe we're looking for.
Yeah, and I guess the follow-up to that, if there's a gap, maybe 10 plus years since they've done that job. One of the things, how do you feel about like hybrid resumes, or I hear different things about functional resumes, hybrid versus the, traditional resumes?
Yeah. For me personally, is again going back to the job description, right? So if it's something that, for example, I had an accounting role many years ago. I haven't done accounting in a while, but if there was a job that maybe I was interested in that called for accounting experience, I would go ahead and put that on there. So my personal opinion is to just always look at the job description. What exactly are they looking for, and what can you do to differentiate yourself from the person that's also applying? Because, if I'm applying for an accounting role and all I have is HR on my resume, they're probably not going to call me, right? But if I include, even though, hey, 10 years ago, I did do this accounting work, I'm trying to, again, you're going to put in your professional summary, I'm looking to get back into accounting, right?
Oh, right.
You'll put on there that you have had this accounting experience. So your professional summary, your job description that you're applying for, and again, tailoring it to your personal brand is really
Yeah,
important.
great, great. And a question just came in. Do you recommend an early career section with fewer details on this?
I'm sorry, can you say what is the
Do
question
you
again?
recommend like an early career section with fewer details for this? So what
Mhm.
I sometimes tell people is having other professional experiences, you can list the companies that you worked with, but don't put the dates necessarily, or don't put all the details.
Mhm.
But you're just, if it's relevant, like you said, if it's relevant. If it's not relevant, there's no reason to put it on there.
Right. That was literally gonna be what I say is, again, we want to look at it from like take your resume. If you want to add that on there, you can add it, but again, print it out maybe or looking at it in a PDF view and time yourself 6 seconds, right? And say, am I even gonna get to that if I was a recruiter? So if it's relevant, then I would say should add it, and you should add those outcomes and tasks that you had, something specific to do with. But if you're just trying to like add something in there just to have, I would personally just remove it. But
Yeah. Don't want to like vomit out every job that you had, right?
right,
That's what
right.
I
Yeah.
say.
Kind of like my
Um,
accounting example, right?
I don't know Workday. Someone asked, Workday
Mhm.
asked that you manually input your job experience as well as uploading your resume. Is that required? I'm not familiar with Workday.
Yes, Workday is funny. You'll see a lot of, Workday is one of those HRSs that does require you to upload it. Personally, yes, go ahead, and I know it's extra work, but go ahead and put in your resume, um, upload as well as entering in the information. It just depends on the specific HRS and also the recruiter. So some recruiters will only want to look at resume PDFs, right? They'll only want to look at what's updated, but some will look at the application information. A good rule of thumb, professionally speaking, it's always good to just go ahead and have a resume anyway. So even though the ATS requires you to put the manual information in, it is just always good rule of thumb to have a resume ready to upload as well.
Okay.
It's easier to print out, for example, if the hiring manager wants to take it to, the recruiter.
And we have time for one more question. What about additional courses? I think I just lost it. Certificates beyond your education. How is the best way to list this?
Yes, so on the resume template that you'll receive, you have a section on the bottom. So if you have any professional coursework that maybe wasn't a certification, for example, like I know for HR, there's I have like my certifications that maybe I took like an HR school of management online, right? You can go ahead and put that on there because it just shows that you're continuously learning and that you have, some extra knowledge there that's good to share as well.
And I'll answer this one. Someone asked, is it best to list your education certifications first or work experience first? My thought is if you're just graduating, newly entering the workforce, you don't have work experience, education does go first. If
Yeah.
you do have that work experience, you want to make sure you highlight that. And as Keena said, the top 130 of your resume is your prime real estate. So you want to highlight your relevant experience first, and then education will go below that. All right, Keena. Well, thank you so much. We got so much information and so good tips, so many good tips here. We appreciate you being here today. Give some love to Keena as you're saying goodbye, and we'll go to the next slide.
You.
Just a reminder, everyone, we do have UK Steps. They're part of our Job Club Facilitator Group, UK Human Resources Temporary Employment. Make sure that you're continually checking those updates out if you're interested in temporary employment. There's the link that you can go for that. And next time at Job Club, which will be in 2 weeks, March 24th, we're going to have a session on strategic upskilling. Upskilling's a great thing to be doing. Don't just learn, leverage. And this will be presented by Mandy Conley, the director of UK Graham Office of Career Management here at UK. So we hope to see you there in a couple of 2 weeks, and hope you got a lot of great stuff. Don't forget to check out all of our resources that are available, the YouTube channel that has the Job Club recordings. And as Keena mentioned, she has some handouts that I'll be sending out to everyone following up this presentation today. So thank you for joining us. Hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.